An investor has $900 which she divides into two savings accounts. One account earns 5% simple interest, and the other account earns 3%. If she earns a total of $42.40 interest in the first year, how much did she invest in each account? Let's begin by getting organized using a 3x3 box. The first row is going to contain information regarding the first account. The second row will be where we put information regarding the second account, and we'll put any information regarding the earnings in the third row. Before we label our columns, let's make note of the fact that the interest earned was for the first year, so we'll be using t is equal to 1 in our equation, and the interest is then going to be calculated using only the principal multiplied by the rate. Our column headers are going to be such that we're going to multiply the first two columns together to get the third column. So let's let our first column be representing the amount of principal in the account, and our second column be related to the interest rate in each account. When we multiply principal times rate, we're going to get the earned interest, and again, this is when the amount of time that's passed is 1 year. Now let's start populating some of these cells. The first account had an earned interest of 5% per year, so we're going to change that 5% to a 0.05. The second account earns interest at a rate of 3%. So we'll put 0.03 into its rate column. Since we know that the earned interest was $42.40, that goes in this bottom right-hand cell. We didn't need to calculate the earnings, so we're not going to need these two cells in this particular problem. Now to populate our principal column, we need to consider that the investor originally had $900, and that amount is going to be split into these two accounts where we don't know how much went into each account. Let's take a moment to clearly state our unknown quantities. What we don't know is the amount of money that's in the 5% account and the amount of money that's in the 3% account. We'll give the variable x to one of these unknown quantities, but what we use for the other unknown quantity needs to be an expression in terms of x. We do not want to introduce another variable, which means we wouldn't want to call this y. If we introduced another variable, we would need to solve using a system of equations. But in this video, we're going to solve using a one-variable linear equation, so we need to keep everything in terms of that one variable. Remember, we had $900 initially, so our second unknown quantity will be the initial $900 that we started with minus however much we put in the first account. This is what remains to go in the second account. So let's use these expressions to populate our principal cells. The amount of money in account 1 is the unknown quantity x, and the amount of money in account 2 is the unknown quantity 900 minus x. Once we have these first two columns populated, this is where we want to multiply those columns together to come up with the third column. So we're going to multiply across here to get 0.05 times x is the interest that's earned from the first account. 0.03 times 900 minus x is the interest that we earn in the second account. And when we add these two interest amounts together, the total will be $42.40. So adding down is how we're going to create our linear equation. We'll have 0.05x plus 0.03 times 900 minus x is equal to $42.40, the total amount of interest. To solve this linear equation, we're going to simplify the left-hand side as much as possible by distributing the 0.03 into the parentheses. 0.03 times 900 is 27, 0.03 times negative x is negative 0.03x, and we're still equal to 42.40 on the other side. Now we're going to combine like terms, so we have 0.02x plus 27 is equal to 42.40. We then subtract 27 from both sides. To get 0.02x is equal to 15.4. Let's pop this up here in order to continue our calculations. We'll now divide both sides by 0.02 in order to completely isolate the x on the left, and we get x is equal to 770. Now it's time to take this quantity and answer the initial questions, which was how much money is invested in each account. We found that x is equal to 770, so that's how much is going to be invested in the 5% account. And then we use this value of x to figure out how much was invested in the 3% account when we take the $900 and subtract what we found x to be, which was 770, we end up with $130. So $770 was invested in the 5% account, and $130 were invested in the 3% account.